and now more crowded race. And we have still a missing Mizzou student. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
And Hannah, all ready and perky and rested.
Yeah.
Recovered from the Como Man show.
Yeah.
And John Marsh.
Here, sir.
All right. And the whole gang is here. Brian Hauswirth, join us in a minute. Glad you're with us. 573-874-9390. Robert Herr is testifying before the Judiciary Committee this morning, so there are some things going on. Also, Stephanie, you were telling me about some committee hearings with education choice. We've been following that story, and they're, it's going to be slow. We don't know how much it's going to grow, the movement, and what's going to get accomplished, but something happening today.
Yeah, there are committee hearings happening for Education Choice. Education Choice also hit the Senate floor yesterday briefly. They went in they didn't really go in at 4. They went in kind of late. They were out like mid-evening. The Democrats immediately started filibustering. I actually heard one, and I might have been, it was a woman senator. I don't want to say who it was because I'm not 100% sure, but they said, I think this is about religion. And I said, we have talked to so many people about education reform, and like as a mother who wants education reform, I could have afforded to send my kids to religious school in Jefferson City, but I didn't want to. That was why I moved, because I didn't want to go to a religious school. So I thought that was a weird tactic early on yesterday in the debate. I didn't get a chance to listen to the rest of it, but they immediately started filibustering. We're suspecting that they will go back to education choice today. I checked their website. It looks like they're going to convene at 1 o'clock today in the Senate. And they did bring up, I know there was some debate about which bill it would be, and it was Senator Koenig's bill that hit the floor yesterday. So we'll have to parse out. And I do think that bill actually, if we're talking mid-Mo education choice, had the expansion of charters for Boone County, which would be nice to see.
Yes. Yes.
So we'll see we're expecting a lot of action. Of course, Friday, or I guess Thursday, they'll probably go out Thursday, and then they're off for spring break. So I'm hoping the pressure of the deadline means that we'll get some things accomplished, or at least, and again, passing a bill isn't necessarily the end game here, but having a meaty debate on the issues that are important to us, that's what we need to do.
You're right. We have to get the word out. We have to have a discussion. There has to be a public hue and cry to have their legislators say, let's meet the enemy and let's defeat the enemy.
The talk about the whole religion angle on school choice is nothing new. That goes back decades, back to the days of school vouchers. And I know for a long time, and I think they changed their position in more recent years, but the Missouri Catholic Conference kind of carried the ball on that one for many years, trying to get school vouchers for parents who elected to send their kids to private schools.
And I get that, because parents don't want to pay twice, right? Pay tax dollars and then do that. But as of recent, I have not heard that argument. It's just, look, and that was me. I was in an elementary district where the proficiency level for math and reading was at like 30-40%. And I said, I cannot as a mother, I cannot wake up and look myself in the mirror and send my kid to a school where the scores are that low. It's just, I got to go, and it didn't have anything to do about religion. It just had to do about, I've done everything up until this point. I have blended up baby food. I have breastfed. I have cloth diapered. I have flashcarded. I have done everything in my power.
And now
to give my kid the best opportunities.
Yeah.
Lived at home during the pandemic.
And now you expect me to send my kid to a school that has an F, that not a B or a C, and a clear F. No, thank you.
That's not what you call value for your money in terms of your taxpayer money, right?
No.
So it's I continue to ask that. I'm sorry, I'm sure it's a stupid question. When I ask it of legislators, they probably say, Randy, why can Arizona do it? Why can Iowa do it? Why can't Missouri do it? I do not understand. Our legislature has no less of a majority, and I think more than at least one of those states. With all due respect to Governor Parson, I think it takes gubernatorial leadership. I know Kim Reynolds up in Iowa drove that a lot. I asked him that on the governor's breakfast, when we did that, the prayer breakfast. And, there wasn't really a solid answer there. But he said, well, the legislature does what they do, and I do what I do. It's going to take leadership at all levels.
It's tough. I mean, I think in particular we've seen a pushback from the rural schools and the smaller school districts saying it could, hurt them. And if you're an elected official from a rural area, your school district superintendent is likely the highest paid person in your area.
Right.
Really prominent, involved in your chamber, involved in every organization. You see them 5 times a week. And so that is a very tough vote if they are adamantly opposed, and that's a person in your district. And that relationship, I think, has mattered in the past. It does matter. And so for a lot of people, that's tough because that's someone that's someone whose opinion you trust, someone you don't want to hurt. And I get that, but we've got to stop thinking about the superintendent and start thinking about the students.
If there's anyone out there listening from the education choice lobby, I have an idea. Why don't we get together a little conference with Angela Morabito from Independent Women's Forum? We interviewed her a couple of weeks ago. I asked that question. I said, look, that seems to be a logical and valid question. What happens to the rural school districts? Unless she's a bold-faced liar, she said, no, they do better. Where this has been done, they do better. I mean, Iowa's they don't have some rural schools there. Maybe they're funded differently. I don't know. But before school choice, but it just doesn't make sense to me. We need to get a conference together with those legislators and superintendents from the rural districts in Iowa and Arizona and Florida and others where this has been done and say, hey, tell us the truth. What happens?
Trust me, we have SEAM, we have AFP, we have Show Me. We have tons of people who are doing the right kinds of education and who have all of the data to back it up. We just need some action.
But you haven't moderated it.
I haven't moderated it.
If we had Stephanie Bell moderating it, a mama bear.
You can't typically moderate when you're super biased.
Well, what about the whole argument over charter schools in Missouri that are only in the Kansas City and St. Louis area, and they're the alternative to traditional schools and all, and those have just, been left to the major metros.
Well, and we have a bill from Representative Cherie Tilson-Reich that would bring them to the city of Columbia, to the Columbia Public Schools. That bill, we'll see what happens on that. But to what you're saying, John, and to Randy and Stephanie's point, let's go back to what was said on this show last week. Cindy O'Loughlin, the Senate Majority Leader, said that the education lobby, this is what she said, folks, they're the most powerful lobby in Jefferson City. And she said on this show that they tell the rural lawmakers, if you vote for school choice, you will be defeated.
They're right.
And she said that.
I remember that.
She said they're wrong. She campaigned on it.
Yeah.
But these rural lawmakers, they hear that. And now I don't know how often they're told that, but if they're told that, they probably worry they're going to not get reelected.
What are they afraid of? What are you afraid of? People out there, you people on the left who call the MAGA people, the conservatives, the Make America Great Again, the limited government, the freedom. You call us fascists. You call us authoritarians. You call us tyrannical. No, you're forcing people to go to failing schools. What are you afraid of? If it's so bad, it'll fail. Everyone will choose the public schools. Why? If it's like Social Security. Why do they have to force us to do it if it's so good for us? Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Well, maybe Justin Hicks has some thoughts about that. He's the newest entry into CD3.
He made it official yesterday. Now, it had been rumored for quite some time, and I think, Brian, you're more familiar with Representative Hicks.
Yes.
He's a first-term legislator, a veteran. He hails from Lake St. Louis, and, of course, we've got Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman in that race, former Senator Bob Onder in that race, former Senator Kurt Schaefer in that race. Arnie Dienhoff is in that race, and there's a couple of other names. But Brian, what do you know about Justin Hicks?
Obviously, I think he is a rising star in the Republican Party, and I think he is going to be formidable. He's been employed in the past as an assistant attorney general, was in the Army 4 years, graduated from Rittner High School, and someone who we talk about bringing kind of a big tent philosophy. The Republicans talk about that quite a bit. I think he's a rising star. I think the one thing that, and by the way, a freshman lawmaker is vice chairman of the House General Laws Committee. I've never seen that in my lifetime. I bet it's never been happened before. But I do think the one thing that may hurt him, and we'll see, I mean, the lawmakers know him, How many people in this part of the district, the western part or the central part of the district, which is really the western part, know him, and that he's going to have to get some name ID. Be nice to hear what he has to say, but he has a bill that would establish charter schools and school districts in St. Charles County.
And I don't purport to know all of the political, all of the polling and everything, but whether or not he helps Mary Elizabeth Coleman because he is another male in the race, and we actually left out Brandon Wilkinson, who came to Boone County Lincoln Days, and I really liked his
He
speech.
shows up at all of the local events.
Yeah, so there are, I think she still remains the only woman in the race, but at the same time, he then is another St. Louis entrant to the race, so does he help Kurt Schaefer? Because Kurt Schaefer, of course, is the only one from mid-Missouri in the race, so it'll be interesting to see as we start seeing some polling out of that race, who he helps and who he hurts.
And the race is so crowded, again, it gets back to the bench and the strength of the Republican Party in a lot of these districts. They've got, I wouldn't be surprised if other people get into the race as well. But I do think, Stephanie, I do think that he will be formidable. The one thing I've been checking every day on filing as best I can, as of yesterday, I haven't had a chance to check this morning, as of yesterday, Caleb Broughton still had not filed for Secretary of State.
He's gone dark. He wasn't at the Cindy O'Loughlin event? You haven't heard anything
He
from
wasn't
him.
at Boone County
Wasn't
Lincoln
at
Days.
Boone County Lincoln Days? Caleb, if you're out there, you don't write, you don't call.
Yeah,
we just want to know you're okay.
We just want to know you're okay.
You're Kate Middleton.
And he is Senate President pro tem, so he's got his hands full. But theoretically, filing doesn't end until the end of the month, but I just checked this morning, and yes, he has not filed for Secretary of State right now. But by the same token, to be fair here, Josh Hawley also has not filed for the U.S. Senate.
What about Malik? Did he file? Because he had not filed on the first day either.
He had not, as of yesterday. Let's check here real quick.
He sure did a barn burner of a speech, so he will. I mean, I'm sure he's going to file.
But as of right now, he is not. It's Cody Smith, Andrew Koenig, and the third candidate, Stephanie, and I have talked about, and she online has support. I just don't know who she is much. Her name is Lori Rook. But online, people really fired up about her. I've never heard of her until this.
She's an attorney. I know people who know her, but I've never met her.
But Cody Smith and Andrew Koenig are well known, and both have been around a long time in the legislature. But obviously, I think Hicks will be an interesting candidate and someone who the bottom line is St. Charles County has a big chunk of Republican votes. The issue for him is Dr. Onder's also in the race.
Judiciary Committee will hear testimony from Robert Hur. He was the one who investigated and wrote the report on Biden's retention of documents. So a lot of questions to come up today. And I believe it's our friends from Judicial Watch that are trying to get a hold of some of those transcripts of some of the interviews, because his report was pretty scathing. And I suspect he kind of put a gloss on it, even though it was a little bit rough. I wonder what was actually said.
You think it was worse than what he wrote?
I think it was.
So I have a question for you. Since Joe's back, that's what they're all saying on Thursday. Is he now prosecutable?
Yeah, since he's fine.
Since he's fine. Isn't that what Hur said?
As long as he's drugged up, I guess maybe he'd be with it enough to be prosecuted. I don't know. All right. Well, yesterday we learned a lot about Biden's proposed budget. We also learned, apparently, I'm going to just say it, I think he hates Taylor Swift. He's super mad she hasn't endorsed him yet, because everyone's always up in arms about Taylor Swift's private jet. And yesterday, Biden proposed an increase on fuel for private jets. And it's not just an increase. It is like a huge increase. So he said, let's see, his budget would raise fuel used by private jets. Are we good?
We're good.
Okay, from 22 cents per gallon now up to $1.06. So 22 cents to over $1 in 5 years.
Wow.
So that's a big increase.
Tax on the fuel?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And they're saying that
It's a 500% increase, isn't it? Or 400%, yeah.
Right. The administration is claiming that private jets account for 7% of all flights handled by the FAA, but less than 1% of the taxes. So they're seeking to try to equalize that. We're also getting, we got some Bob Menendez news yesterday. He did plead guilty to these new charges from yesterday. And then as far as Biden's budget goes, we got a lot of bad news, although maybe some good news for Hannah. Apparently, he's going to try to bring back this first-time homebuyers credit in some form. He's also budgeting $12 billion to help relieve college costs. So, I mean, if you got some college help and some first-time homebuyers stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, I would be so elated. I probably wouldn't fit in the door.
I mean,
to
it
the
is
studio.
election season, and so he is trying to get those college students to vote for him one way or another.
Yeah,
so if
stay
he can't,
tuned.
so if he can't relieve their college loans, he's going to give them that first-time homebuyers credit, or at least propose that. There's also stuff in there about expanded child tax credits, housing, a bunch of money for homelessness, a bunch of money on climate. I mean, it's going to take us a while to dig through this, and there's a lot of bad stuff.
It's
Randy.
a lot of the same old, right? I mean, they're playing the same plays out of the same playbook that got them to the last dance. I think they think it's somehow going to work. It's close enough. If you look at the polls, they think that'll push it over the top.
I don't know. It's a lot of spending.
Well, they also, Donald Trump gave them loaded the gun for them to make a fabulous new campaign ad from their standpoint.
Well, and I think a campaign ad would be he wants to expand the new Climate Corps from 20,000 workers to 50,000 workers.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, what does the Climate Corps do?
I don't know. Something new they launched last year. Just more federal.
Justin Hicks. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, well, I don't know what his lane is to win this race. He is a freshman representative. You know, what I suspect is that he possibly doesn't think that he has a chance to win re-election for his state rep seat. So why not throw my hat in the ring and hope that lightning strikes and I become a congressman? That's my thoughts.
Why do you think he would be threatened for re-election? Is there some strong opposition to him? Was he going to be primaried?
Well, there was some stuff that came out on him last year. This guy that was going to run against him said that a restraining order was filed against him when he was a younger man and allegedly choked his girlfriend and all of that. So I think he's going to have a pretty serious challenger.
Wow.
In this race, and so why not try for Congress?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of folks that don't have name recognition, but they throw their hat in the ring. I don't know what motivates them, frankly, because, you know, when you got the powerhouses like Bob Onder and of course, Mary Elizabeth Coleman's up and coming for sure, and, of course, Kurt Schaefer, there's a lot of, a lot of competition out there. So we'll have to see where it goes. Hey, this Hazelwood East thing, it didn't happen on campus, but it happened outside. I was telling folks yesterday here that I once saw a basketball player. I was at a high school basketball game, and one of the kids took a spill and really went up for a big layup and ended up his noggin hit the ground like a pumpkin, and the kid started having a seizure. And in this video, the sight of this young girl having a seizure right there because of the brutal beating that she took just really hit me in the heart. She's still in critical condition. That's the latest I've heard. I looked at the paper this morning. She's still in critical condition. You know, I grew up in that area. I actually went to Hazelwood Central instead of Hazelwood East. But where I lived, I was very close on the borderline to have gone to Hazelwood East. And it's just sad to me to see how that area of North County has gone down over the last 30 or 40 years, how the Hazel School District has gone down. You know, when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, the school districts that you wanted to attend here in St. Louis County was Hazelwood, Ferguson, Florissant, and Parkway. Those are the three top districts. Now Hazelwood Central or Hazelwood and Ferguson, Florissant is probably one of the worst districts to go to. You know, it's shocking to see what the violence that these kids engage in. And what really upset me was I was watching one of the news shows, and they had a gentleman from the Urban League talking about this incident, and he didn't talk about that she probably came from a home without a father, probably a dysfunctional family. The issue that he brought up is there weren't enough resources in the community, and when there's not enough resources, we see instances like this. It was just sad to me, and I know there are black people that may be listening to me right now that are liberal. They'll say that I'm an Uncle Tom and I'm playing to white people and all of that, but it just angers me that black people won't take responsibility for these kids that they're not raising, and they're becoming a menace to society. You know, Martin Luther King, he gave a speech in 1962, I think it was, in St. Louis, and he says, I'm paraphrasing, it says, you know, there's a lot wrong in the white community, but there's a lot wrong in the black community as well, and that we need to take responsibility for ourselves, and that we can't expect white people to help us get to where we want to be in life and be in this country, that we have to take responsibility for ourselves. And it's unfortunate that message has been lost, and the Democrats have turned African Americans into a bunch of victims and making excuses for abhorrent behavior. You know, Chris, you're an unabashed man of faith, and so am I. And it's so striking to me that when faith was a larger part, not only of America at large, but of the black community in the 40s and 50s and even in the early 60s, before the welfare society came along and across the fabric of America, faith started to erode. Do you think there's an element of that that has contributed both to and been aiding and abetting what's going on in our urban neighborhoods and in our now suburban neighborhoods with this kind of just rampant crime and just the lack of guardrails?
I definitely think so. I mean, if you look at the African American community, we sang Negro spirituals in the fields while we were slaves. If you look at the civil rights movement, it was headed by leaders like Martin Luther King and other preachers. The African American community, even though we faced discrimination, had a strong faith element to it. And I think once LBJ and the Great Society came about, and Democrats knew that they could have a steady constituency to vote for them. Being African American, you saw them infiltrate the church. We see a lot of our leaders, our church leaders, are nothing but an arm of the Democratic Party. I mean, you can go to a sermon in October during election year, and you would swear that it was a political rally instead of a sermon. Wow. And that's been smart by the Democrats. You know, Margaret Sanger, the one that founded Planned Parenthood, there's a famous saying where she says, if you want to appeal to the African Americans and gain their trust, you do that by the preacher. And the Democrats have used that to their advantage these last 60 years.
It's so sad to see these lives that are snuffed out, either because they end up incarcerated or in a life of crime in and out of the system, or the very lives that they take, or the people that are maimed as a result of that. I've over the years when I was practicing in St. Louis, I had patients who had been shot and had spinal cord injuries, and of course they were in wheelchairs, and it's just so sad. Chris Arps is with us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Chris, when we had Attorney General Andrew Bailey on the air yesterday talking about the Hazelwood Central incident, he pointed fingers in no uncertain terms and said the juvenile judges in the state of Missouri have dropped the ball in cases like this.
Well, I think the juvenile court system was, when it was first implemented, it was for kids that got into a little mayhem, that got into fights, you know, maybe did some stealing or something like that, things where they could be reformed. These kids now, they are hardcore criminals. They're 14, 15 years old. And a lot of them know that because they are juveniles, that the system is going to be much more lenient on them as they would if they were an adult. I think there needs to be a massive reformation of the juvenile court system and that whole system in general. These kids are not the kids of 40 and 50 years ago, where if you put them in reform school or they got into a little trouble, you can get them straight. I remember when I was in sixth grade in 1978, and there was a groundbreaking show that came on called Scared Straight, where they would send these kids that were on the verge of getting into serious trouble to the jails. And these inmates would talk to them and show them what life would be inside. And most of those kids changed their lives. Nowadays, you send these kids into prisons and talk about them. They feel right at home, and it wouldn't intimidate them at all, I would think.
Yeah, it's almost become a badge of courage, and I don't know how we're going to come around to where self-realization and self-fulfillment comes from accomplishment, not from what kind of tattoo you have, what gang member you are, how many drugs you can distribute, who's got the coolest gun, or who shoots the most people. It's just the whole standards for what are aspirational goals in our society. And you know, Chris, while we were talking about the black community, I think it's really becoming widespread in different degrees across all areas of society. And it you know, a lot of it has to do with poverty and cycles of poverty. Sure. But the government, instead of aiding parents in doing their job, like you said, when a kid gets in trouble, hey, as a parent, I'm okay if that judge looks at that kid sternly when he stole a stick of gum from the 5 and dime. You know, yeah, give it to him, judge. You know, before they have a chance. Now, so many parents and so many single moms trying to raise kids, and dads too, but more moms. They're depending on the government to be the parents, and we just can't depend on an agnostic, dare I say, atheistic, dare I say, socialistic, self-dealing government to be an honest broker when it comes to parenting. Can't do it.
Oh, I agree. When I was in my teenage years, you know, my mother told me that, hey, if you get in trouble and you end up in jail, don't call me to come and get you out because you're gonna be there for a few days. And, you know, that's something you keep in the back of your mind. Now with these parents and everything, they want to go up to the jail and cry and fight and say it's racism that my child is in jail and he's the perfect angel, goes to Sunday school every Sunday. I don't know why you're picking on him. It's racism. It's done a total 180.
Yeah, it's something else. And the criminality, we've got to turn it around. It's a cultural problem. It's a cultural problem.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
are you hearing in St. Louis as much about school choice as we are hearing here? Now, in St. Louis, you do have some charter schools. I mean, you've had them for a while, so you've had some experience. There are hearings going on. The issue hit the Senate floor yesterday, and we expect it back today. What are you hearing there in St. Louis?
I'm hearing a lot about school choice because on our show we have someone from the Herzog Foundation that talks a lot about school choice and how that movement is burgeoning here in Missouri. Right to probably a few miles from my home, a new charter school opened up. It's in a predominantly African American area, and I got to tell you, the local municipality that this school was in gave these people holy hell in order for them to start this school. They wouldn't give them the building permits. They slow walked everything that they wanted to do to open this school. So there's a lot of resistance, of course, especially from the teachers unions. But I think what we're seeing around the country, where we're having statewide school choice, where you can go to any school that you want, I think that's going to get stronger and stronger. We had an instance here, speaking of the Hazel School District, where they threw out a bunch of kids because of their residency. They weren't actually living in the district. A lot of them were reinstated once their credentials were updated. But I think you see just in that case, people that parents want their children to go to the best schools that they can get them to, regardless of the area that they live in.
It's yeah, you're right. And isn't it funny if these schools are so bad, if charter schools are so bad, if school choice and putting your money into a home school or a parochial school or a private school, what are they afraid of? What are they it's important that we recognize that these stories we hear about nationally, and Lake and Riley is the most recent one that reminds us of the connection between small communities, everyday people living their lives, and the impact of the illegal immigrants. And many of whom are, especially as they come from Venezuela, where they're emptying the prisons and they're putting them, on caravans to come here. There's no doubt that there's just a lot of criminality, not to mention the terrorists that they regularly catch on the terrorist watch list. Well, there's some new information regarding a Hazelwood. It seems like we're talking a lot about Hazelwood to the east of us in North St. Louis County. There was a head-on collision in December that killed a 12-year-old on December 20th, the night before his birthday. The Hazelwood Police Department sergeant there said, "I saw two vehicles with heavy damage to both front ends, airbags deployed. 6 people rushed to the hospital, including Travis, his parents, women. He was on life support for a while. His parents had multiple broken bones, wrists, ribs, sternum, breastbone, more. Travis never woke up, passed away on March 6th, just a week ago, a little less than a week ago. The driver of the oncoming car was heading in the wrong direction. Her name was Indrino Bracco, facing involuntary manslaughter in the first degree, 2 counts of assault in the second, 2 counts of endangering a child, and 1 count of operating a vehicle without a valid license. Court documents also said, drum roll, please, the defendant is here illegally from Venezuela. A 12-year-old. And you look at the picture of this young man, and just a charming young 12-year-old.
The night before his birthday,
yes.
As a mother with a 12-year-old
son. What is that? How does that speak to you, Stephanie?
I mean, it's the same. I mean, it's similar to how I feel about Lake and Riley, and that you could you could do everything right and send your child somewhere, and it's the randomness of it and the horrific, and just the complete disregard for life, and that we're just that. I can't. I mean, it's terrifying. You want to wrap your kid in a bubble and never let them leave home.
I think there's a natural angst about parenting. We've all been through it. That it just everyday things that happen. The kid's climbing a tree and falls out and ends up in the emergency room. Things that kids go through.
My daughter currently has a giant scab / scrape from the bark of a tree from yesterday down her torso. And I said, maybe let's be a little bit more careful.
And we all expect that. And I guess, you a certain amount of leeway for kids to learn from their expeditions, But these are things that we should have better control of. And to hear the illogical argument from left that says, well, there's like Joe Biden in the State of the Union. Well, there's 1,000 killed by legals every day. That's irrelevant.
That is irrelevant.
Why do we have to talk about the 1,001th? I know better grammar. But the 1,001st that is the Lake and Riley, and the 1,002nd that is this young man, Travis. I mean, this woman who was driving, was she on drugs? Is that why she was driving the wrong way? Was she, did she not know the rules of the road? And to think that, there are thousands of people just like her, whether they're on drugs or they don't know the rules of the road, pouring through our borders again, it's just terrifying.
Heck, have you ever been on the roads in Mexico? I mean, it's nobody knows the rules of the road.
It's crazy. And did I mention she was 30 miles over the speed limit? Going 70 miles per hour on a 40. I mean, only Hannah does that when she's trying to get here in the morning.
We don't talk about that.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had to bring it up. It's bad news, but it's news that everyone needs to hear.
our border. They want these illegal migrants in here to create more electoral power for them in their blue states. They're basically creating sanctuary cities to be a magnet so these people will disproportionately flow to these blue states. They're shipping them there as rapidly as they can. Since Joe Biden came into office, the estimates are as high as 10 million people that have come in here. That would be 13 extra congressional districts.
Don't let it be said that they don't have an agenda, Stephanie Bell, about bringing these illegals in. This is about changing the whole landscape of our electoral realities.
They certainly do have an agenda. And don't forget, like the population centers are not in areas where we would want additional congressional districts, right?
It's blue concentration.
It is.
The water in the toilet bowl with the flush blue stuff is going to go from light blue to deep blue. It's going to be bluer than blue everywhere. Where did I come up with that metaphor, Marsh? I don't know.
The tidy bowl man.
The tidy bowl man. Yeah, that's what Joe Biden and Democrats are. They just make that water bluer. All right, now we've got some other...
And let's not, 13 congressional districts is huge. With as tight as...
Yes.
With as close as it's been and as locked up as everything's been, 13 is a difference maker.
It is. It's actually an existential difference, yeah. Well, look at what happened here in Missouri. The last census, we lost a district, right? So it happened. All right, now, should we let the audience know that they're a part of a great thing? Wake Up in Missouri made it onto FoxNews.com because of our discussion with Andrew Bailey yesterday and juvenile justice reform.
Big deal.
I'm proud of the family.
Who spotted that first, by the way?
Randy did.
Oh, Randy, look at you go.
Randall.
and they even used the show name because we've made it big time before.
Oh yeah.
What, like, it wasn't it was Rolling Stone or something and a couple of others, and they're like a mid-Missouri radio station, and we're like, come on, give us
another
check us.
Yeah, another favorite of mine is always when they call us a local radio show.
Yeah.
But they not only mentioned the show by name,
linked to it.
They linked to the radio station's website.
We're blowing up. And I actually checked because, our former family member, Breck Dumas, works for a Fox Business. And I was like, ooh, did Breck do us a solid? Is this her article? No, she's still on the business side. It's not her article.
Yeah,
but
I checked too.
I thought, but no, it was a fun day yesterday. That was cool.
On the text line, we were talking about this beating of the Hazelwood East girl who's still in critical condition. She said that 15-year-old, the perpetrator, a girl, is an animal. No other explanations needed. She should be locked up for life. Her parents should be investigated as well. Animal, animal, animal. Well, there's no doubt about it. I think that the definition of an adult criminal mind needs to maybe be reeled down a little bit earlier than, 17 or 18. Things probably need to change. Talking about the person driving the wrong way. You talking about driving in Mexico, Marsh? You guys should try driving in Thailand. Sounds like it's
or mid-Missouri.
Yeah, So we have a missing Mizzou student, an interesting and menacing story out of Nashville. What's going on there? We
don't know much.
A Mizzou student who was working in Nashville?
No, he was there with his frat house.
Yeah, they were traveling for their spring formal.
Oh.
They went to the bars, as, college students do.
College kids will do that.
Friday night, and he / some of the fraternity members, they got kicked out of the bar around 10 o'clock Friday night.
That'll happen.
Luke Bryan's bar, no less.
Yeah, Luke Bryan's bar.
Oh.
And his friends haven't seen him since. They've attempted to use Snapchat to, find his location. But they haven't had any luck. His location hasn't been updated since Friday night. And his family is he's from Springfield, was attending Mizzou, and is missing in Nashville of all places.
Riley Strain.
Yes. 22-year-old. He's 6'5", which is crazy.
Yeah, weighs 160-some pounds. He shouldn't be too hard to spot.
No, this is like an Abe Lincoln lookalike, right? He's tall and lanky. You're not going to miss this gentleman.
Yeah, so his family has traveled from Springfield to Nashville, and they're in the area.
That is awful.
The good news is it's getting lots of media attention. I'm reading a People.com article reporting on his disappearance, so hopefully they find him soon.
Now, it said that he had a blue jeans, brown boots, and a black Apple Watch. Isn't there some kind of a locator thing with Apple devices?
I know they had tried. I couldn't tell, Hannah, if it was Snapchat or Life 360 or the Apple Watch, but they had pinged off of maybe his phone, and they had identified like his last known location,
which was about a mile from the bar, or within a mile, because those pings aren't super specific, right?
Oh.
But then they said they lost contact with it or whatever.
Which, if he's been missing since Friday night, I mean, the battery life on my phone, like, it's not going to last that long.
Oh, can you imagine the torment, the terror in those parents' minds?
Well, and how long have the students been doing their formals off campus? I know it was a practice that started during COVID because the university wouldn't let the frats and the sororities have their events on campus, so they started traveling. And so that... I mean, that's what they were doing. They were traveling for their formal.
Well, does this coincide with their spring break? Maybe, I don't know.
No, like a prom.
The university said, and Hannah's information very good there. I've got a couple other things to add, but basically they were saying it was a private event. The University of Missouri. Now, to add to what Hannah said, the MUPD is involved in this case. So let's make that very clear.
That's
they are also they're providing support and counseling, but they're also investigating because they he's a student that goes to Mizzou. So obviously these other students that belong to this fraternity, some of them need counseling, but they're really encouraging people who have any information to call the MUPD. There's a phone number here, 573-882-7201 is the number to call. Nia Hinson from our news partner KMIZ went live last night and did a fine job on this story as well. And one of the things that basically they indicated to Nia, some of the other fraternity brothers, is that he was last seen near a riverfront. He may have been near a river. Mm-hmm. And if you look there's a poster. I'm not going to go into all the details, but the poster that the family put up, there are comments on there, and people are speculating maybe he could be injured on like a riverbank. So, let's hold out hope. I mean, they've pointed out people have gone missing in there before, and then other people are telling the family to check hospitals, which, by the way, they have done. So
they've
it's
checked
just
hospitals, jails, nothing.
They have, they've checked all that, but they continue to. It's just a very sad situation.
Increasingly worrisome the longer the time goes on.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
in another thing, you covering a story about Columbia is going to hold a town meeting tonight on drug overdose deaths. I guess is Police Chief Jill Schluty going to preside, or is she just commenting in your story?
She will not be presiding, but she will
be there. Okay.
She will be there. But that I encourage everybody to attend. This is not Randy Tobler saying this. This is not Gary Nolan. This is the Boone County Overdose Response Coalition, Randy. They are saying this is two things. A crisis, and it is a public health emergency, the ongoing drug overdose crisis. And I crunched some numbers. I checked these with Jenny Hopper. It's up on my story, 939theeagle.com, KWS.com. And it's a little confusing, but I'm just going to say it just like Jenny told me. Columbia had 13 confirmed fatal overdoses confirmed in 2023. 18 fatal overdoses, correct. 18 confirmed fatal overdoses in 2022. At least 31 in the last 3 years. However, there have been 20 suspected fatal overdoses in 2023 and 20 more in 2022. 4 suspected fatal overdoses this year. So anywhere from, this is why it's hard in the copy, as we call it, the news copy, to explain this. For sure, 31, possibly as many as 44 overdose deaths in the city of, that's not Boone County, that's not Ashland, that's the city of Columbia. And they're going to be giving out Narcan at the meeting tonight. You just shook your head no, but I think
that's a good idea. No, they should give out Narcan.
They are giving it out.
I was just curious, John, are you feeling the same magnitude of overdose impact in Jefferson City? And for any of you listening,
I think it's the same everywhere.
So if you're in our earshot of our voice, and you live in Fulton or Moberly or California, let us know. I mean, if you're aware of that, I'd like to get a sense of just how pervasive this is. Like you say, Brian, this is not just isolated to a little bubble in Columbia.
That's exactly right. And I mean, the chief, and it's in my story here, that's why I encourage people to go. Some of you out there listening may have a perception, well, it's just in that neighborhood or that neighborhood. I know that's not the case because I have the scanner going every day. They're down in every part of the community, including the south part of town. They're also in the central city and in the poor parts of town. The chief herself, Jill Schluty, says this: overdoses happen in every neighborhood in our community. That's what she said, and I know that for a fact because I hear it on the scanner.
Well, and just yesterday we were talking about the Missouri lawmaker who has proposed the bill that would require college campuses to have like rescue drugs for overdoses easily and readily available for students.
I rethought that whole discussion, and I suppose maybe what will happen, I predict what will happen is when enough people witness enough near misses or, sadly, deaths from this kind of an event, people will learn. Americans learn the hard way. They learn through freedom and experience and the consequences thereof, and I think they'll learn. I'm wondering if this evening, if I should go and make a request that they consider their police support as one of the solutions to this problem. Let's snuff out the drug culture as best we can.
You are. It's open to everybody. You absolutely are encouraged to attend. I think it'd be good for you to go there because I think you'll be able to say that. To Hannah's point, Hannah brings up a great point. The lawmaker she's referring to is Doug Mann, who is a Democrat from Columbia. I think we should have him on the show. He's going to be retiring this year. He's not running for re-election. This has nothing to do with politics. This is the chief herself said it's a crisis. But what Mann's bill, I want to specify, Mann's bill, he can't require those kids. Hannah said it right. He can't require them, let's say, Stevens or Columbia College, because those are private colleges. Or universities and colleges, but this would be on the public colleges. That bill it's essentially the same bill he filed last year. He's hopeful about getting it done, but again, it gets back to for these committee, and I know a lot of the committee chairmen are listening to us, and we know this is a crisis. His hearing was last week. How did it take almost 3 months for him to get a hearing? And he's a Democrat. I mean, I know he's in the minority, but I mean, I think that's a pretty important issue, don't you?
Yeah, my guess is that unlike AEDs or fire extinguishers, because that's the vision we have, right? Some kind of a little box that you crack.
Sure.
Well, that's a pharmaceutical. And it can be, misused. That you can overdose on Narcan. I mean, there are potential side effects to that. Maybe there's some kind of a safety concern there that they thought the risk. But why not have the debate? Let's have the discussion.
Have the hearing. I mean, and let the people vote. If they want to vote against the bill, that's fine. I'm staying out of the policy issue, but the point of the matter is this would be regulated, these kits, by the Department of Health. And this is not Joe Blow going out putting kits at the schools. This is going to be the Department of Health and Senior Services. And Doug Mann he's very serious about it. He's hopeful to get it, but timing's going to be the biggest obstacle to him this year.
It always is. Reminder, there's a Missouri Right to Life, Keep Missouri Pro-Life Action Day today. One of our listeners, Vic, sends it. Tuesday, March 12th. That is today, 10 a.m. registration down at the Capitol. Special guest Claire Colwell. What's hot with Hannah?
I found something interesting from the Department of Conservation here in Missouri.
My favorite department.
Of all places, right?
Love those guys and gals.
And I'm sure this is not a new thing that they're doing, but it's new to me. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if it's maybe new to other Wake Up family members. But they have announced a Bradford pear tree buyback program. John, is this new, or have you heard of this before?
I think conservation has kind of been in the picture of trying to eradicate the Bradford pear, calling it an invasive species for some time.
Yes, so registration for this event opens up officially on Friday, and you have a month to get registered for this, what they're calling a buyback program. Basically, once you register, all you have to do is send them a photo of your chopped down Bradford pear tree, which, of course, if you're not familiar with a Bradford pear tree, they're most known for their pretty white flowers and their god-awful smell.
And they're blooming like nobody's business right now.
Yes, they have a very, fishy smell to me.
Pungent odor.
Yes.
A pungent odor.
But they are not native to this area, and so they're basically considered an invasive species.
But they're so pretty.
They are pretty. I will give them that, but that's about all they got going for
them. And they
them.
don't last long. What do they have, a lifespan of maybe 10 or 20 years, and then they start cracking in any star?
Yeah, all the ones at my house are dead.
Yeah, are they really don't stand well to a good windstorm after a while. So, yeah.
And there's nothing worse than walking down a city street that is lined with Bradford pear trees. I don't know why anyone thought that was a good idea, but here we are. So maybe I'll post information on this, later into the registration period. But would you chop down your Bradford pear trees?
Heck no.
Well, the Missouri Department of Conservation is going to trade you for a tree that's native to Missouri that isn't going to smell god-awful, and it's not an invasive species. You wouldn't do that?
Now, Bradford pears are one of those kind of trees. They grow like weeds, and in a couple of years, you got a great big tree with pretty white blossoms on it, like my neighbor Zach does. So
that smells terrible.
I don't know. Entropy does a lot of damage on its own,
Entropy?
Entropy is, yes, it's a law of physics. I forget which law of thermodynamics it is, but it's the tendency of things to go to disorder. That's the law of entropy. And so I like to watch entropy happen. I like to, let things happen, take their natural course. You can tame it if you want, but let the tree be the tree. The tree has a life, after all. Why would I chop down a life? I'm pro-life.
Okay. Weren't you just talking about how you were taking a chainsaw to some bushes or some vines or something?
Now, wait a minute. Autumn olive is not a pretty invasive. And
I'm just wondering how we got in physics and thermodynamics.
You are glad you are joining us. If you are, it's good to have you around.
And if you're not, I guess you're not hearing this anyways.
That's right. And well, look at what you're missing. All the good things in life. When you don't partake of them, you have great regret later.
Missing out on a nationally mentioned radio show.
That's right.
Go.
I saw that last night.
And thermodynamics thrown in.
I know. I haven't.
You physics majors out there.
We haven't talked about the laws of thermodynamics recently. Maybe should we do a segment or two on that?
No.
Oh.
No.
Entropy, the second law of thermodynamics.
Entropy's sort of a sad thing, you know. I mean, everything is going towards disorder and chaos. It's one of the sad laws of thermodynamics. It's like, if you think about it, you know, when you work on the land, like on my hobby farm up a little north of here, it seems like I do nothing but try to tame nature, and I don't do a very good job of that. You know.
Wait. What do you mean?
Well,
elaborate.
Well, you have a nice field that I manage for wildlife. Okay, I want great herds of wonderful deer and turkey and quail. Okay.
I heard you really like land erosion too.
I hate ruts. I spend more time putting cedar trees in developing ruts than Joe Biden has diapers in the White House.
Hopefully you're not planting Bradford pear trees.
No. But I cut down cedars and I put them upside down. You know, like they're the barbs in the rut. You know what I mean? Like the barbs on a hook. I put them with the pointy side, the top of the tree down, and I'm hoping that'll slow down the water so the erosion will. And I have this grand plan, even though cedars take forever to erode, that over time, with the help of entropy, biological processes, and weather, that they'll turn into filling in the ruts. That may be a hopeless dream, but I'm trying. But you know, and then you clear a field and you plant natives. I eradicated a bunch of your favorite grass because it feeds the cattle. Fescue, right? Mm-hmm. Not mine. It's an invasive. I like native grass. And so I eradicate the grass, 20, 40, 80 acres, and then I plant prairie grass and warm season grass and forbs, the beautiful things that all the animals love.
So you love native grass.
I do restorative agriculture. Yeah.
But yet you have something against cutting down a Bradford pear tree, which is not native and is classified as an invasive species.
Well, but by definition, a neighborhood is not native. A neighborhood is an invasive species on the natural landscape. So if you're going to do it, you might as well make it look like a Hallmark postcard, right? And true. Bradford pears look like a Hallmark postcard.
And they smell like death.
How would you know what death smells like?
You don't know what I do in my free time.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, whoa. There's a wannabe mortician, Hannah.
Hello.
Oh, wait a minute. Tina wants to talk about atrophy. Now, what does atrophy and entropy have? They're related. They're related. Let's see.
Nate.
Go ahead.
My bad.
Go ahead. Tell us about what you want to talk about.
You said everything's running down.
Yeah.
Climate change, everything's running down. The Bible's so relevant. Adam and Eve screwed up in the garden, and everything has been going down ever since.
Yeah, and it's like this, like in the Good Book where it says, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. Human civilizations go through, they build themselves up, they work hard, they have a great work ethic, everyone knows that by every person trying to achieve the highest potential that their God gave them, everyone does well, right? A rising tide raises all boats, you know. And then prosperity leads to sinful apathy and laziness and lassitude and then, you know, everything goes to, you know what, in a handbasket. Then it starts all over again. It's the cycle of life.
Yeah.
It's the circle of life. There you go. See? There you go.
Okay.
A tree of knowledge you get you every time.
That apple's good going down, but boy, you pay for it at the end.
Or a stinky pear.
Yeah. It's funny, I didn't know that about the pears, even though I've walked by them. I guess I don't. It's only briefly when they're blooming, right?
Yeah, they don't bloom for real long.
Yeah,
they're pretty, though.
They're pretty. I should know better because I have bees. I checked my hives over the weekend. I have all 3 of my hives are doing well.
Well, Benadryl will take care of that.
They made it through. What?
I see what you did there.
That's a good one. Clip that for a promo. That's a good one. No, but my hives, I always worry if they're going to make it through the winter. And then now I have to feed them the sugar water to help give them a jump start. You know how you do that? The most efficient way to do that, John, and the most economical way?
I don't.
You take a Ziploc bag and you fill it with water, and then you put it on top of the top, combs of the hive, and then you just take a razor blade and slice a few slices of it. And the bees find their way into the sugar water. It's a beautiful thing. Or you
don't they hibernate over the winter? Generally?
They maintain a temperature in the hive of about 95-ish degrees. What kills them over the winter is moisture. You get condensation. The cold water and the hot, the cold moisture, especially when it snows or rains, and the warmth inside, so they can drown. That's why the latest craze is to put a penny under the top cover to get a little ventilation in there. But yeah, beehives are the most amazing thing in God's creation. I mean, it's just amazing how they survive through the winter and they're stored up. It's a beautiful story of conservation and survival and resilience and community. It's a community story.
Not to interrupt your kumbaya moment. We got a text at 874-9390 from a brand new texter.
Oh, great.
It says there's actually a hearing this morning at 8:30 to cease the sale of invasive Bradford pear trees.
Ooh.
Senate Bill 1281. I'm going to have to look into this. Thank you.
The truth is, I am totally in favor of avoiding invasives. Okay, let me make it clear. Totally in favor. I'm just kidding you about all this. It's good idea.
Also, you mentioned you're against killing a live thing. Marissa points out on the live video feed on our, Wake Up in Missouri Facebook page that you just the other day were talking about offing raccoons. So,
but when
there's that.
Season's closed on raccoons.
But there's a hierarchy of animal life and what it means to us, right? For those of you out there who have bird dogs, I used to have one, but Lucy died a couple years ago, so I don't have a bird dog now. But,
I used to raise them.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. I mean, there's nothing. John, are there many things in life more compelling, more beautiful, more inspirational than a dog on point with a covey of quail? I mean, I can't think of anything much more inspiring than that. It's a beautiful thing.
That's a good one. Or pheasants.
Or pheasants, right. And the tail is twitching. And then a well-trained dog, you walk up behind the dog, and all you have to do is pat him on the head or whatever your signal is. Bam! They go and they bust the quail, and then it's just a beautiful thing. It just, I'm sorry, I'm waxing eloquently over the love of nature. I'm a nature lover. I really am.
Weren't we gonna miss my old setters, man?
Oh yeah, setters, beautiful.
Weren't we gonna talk about news stuff here? We chased a squirrel metaphorically.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
We got to give you the news stories of the day. Robert Hur, remember the guy that wrote the report on Joe Biden's willful retainment of documents in his Corvette garage. Remember that, in the disheveled boxes? And he was guilty as charged, according to Robert Hur, but a jury would find him sympathetic, and so no one would convict him because of his, old man, poor memory status. Well, he's testifying today in front of the Judiciary Committee, and it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. I mean, some of the testimony, the released testimony that was printed, says that he has no remorse of it. He didn't sugarcoat it, nor did he sanitize it. He was the guy
with the elderly man with the poor memory comments, right?
That's right. Yeah, Robert Hur. Okay. He's the special prosecutor in that case. For me, I think this will be a very revealing moment that'll probably be pretty damaging because he's not going to back down. Not going to back down at all. Derek says, entropy is a law of physics that disproves evolution from a single-cell organism. Yay! Good for you, Derek. And that there is a larger creator that gave organization to the world. Good for Derek. Nothing. Doug says nothing tastier than nature, Randy. No, and I think we do have biblical justification for our stewardship of the earth, including our management of animals and our utilization of animals for our own consumption, right? But yet I raise many more deer than I kill. I manage the herd we try to keep the buck to doe ratio just perfect. Try to manage it beautifully. And so we do. Let's see here. Dwayne says, the Conservation Department will pay you to cut down honeysuckle bushes off your land. Yeah, I know that too. I don't have many of those.
Oh, bush honeysuckle.
Oh, those honeysuckles they're yucky.
About right up there at the invasive list, aren't they?
Yeah. Other news, another entrance into the Congressional District number 3 race here in Missouri. Justin Hicks from the St. Charles area will be entering. A story we didn't cover. Yesterday was the 4-year anniversary of the COVID emergency.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's already been 4 years.
Can you imagine? Is that right? No.
Yeah.
Is that right?
2019.
That's right. No, it was 20.
Sounds right, yeah.
It's 2020.
Well, 2019 is when it started. 2020 was kind of when it got bad.
That's just when it was declared. Yeah, right. Can you imagine that? 4 years. And doesn't it seem like just a blink ago we were all sheltering down and cocooning and wearing masks and crazy and worrying about the world coming to an end. And this is the Andromeda strain, remember?
I got COVID really early into the pandemic, and I remember...
Is that what happened?
I remember
the long COVID.
Getting the notification that I had tested positive and sobbing in my bedroom because I thought I was going to die, basically.
No, I mean,
that's how scared we all were about it.
Didn't you have terror in your mind then?
Yeah.
I'll bet you did.
Yeah, because, they were talking about comorbidities and all this stuff. And, I was a college student and I've never been super healthy. So I was basically convinced I was going to die and that my college roommates were not going to take care of me.
Yeah, our buddy Mike Ferguson, who used to do talk show on the radio stations, he got it real early on and ended up in the ICU.
He was a sick pup.
He was real sick.
You betcha.
I think he was.
And he's a healthy guy.
Yeah, I think he was probably the first person that I knew personally that had tested positive for it.
Yeah, and then just that week he'd been filling in as our fill-in host. And I was in the studio back slapping with him and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was fun.
A texter says, just think if Adam and Eve had been Cajuns, they would have ate the snake and left the apple alone, saving us all a lot of trouble. Oh, that's great. Hey, we're gonna maybe work out something with the Conservation Federation guy. He texted us here, so let's.
Yeah, he's gonna join us tomorrow.
Oh, great! Tomorrow, beautiful. That'll be something to look forward to.
I've already got it handled. Randall, come on.
are finding themselves face to face with the latest innovation in food technology. Fresh fish, as in fresh off the printer. The Austrian-based food tech startup Revo Foods has developed a 3D printed vegan fish fillet, quote, inspired by salmon. Popular Science says it relies on mycoprotein made from nutrition-heavy filament-laden fungi that naturally offers a meat-like texture. Company says the funny fillet will be available at its web store, but the U.S. wannabe print pescatarians out there, Revo only ships to the European Union, but they will be in the U.S. market by 2025. And they say next up, fake shrimp made from cactus and vegan oysters that begin as lima beans. And now you know the rest of that semi-palatable story.
Wow.
I typically try to avoid eating fungus, but I guess some people are into that.
Leave the Wonder Bread on the counter long enough.
Randy will eat it.
You don't like mushrooms?
No.
It's a form of fungus
There you
among
go.
us. It's good for you.
I know.
A lot of
probably why I don't like it.
lot of glycoproteins in there. Very, very good for your immune system.
We're hearing the morels are coming out early this year as
Are
well.
they? Yeah, we've had. Yeah, that's right. A spate of warm weather. So, those morels, they are so luscious and it's so short-lived. But that's what makes them so enticing, right? It's such a
That's
short
the deal.
season.
Yeah,
Oh
if you
man,
go buy them for $80 a pound at the store. Would they be that big a deal? Right?
that's right. You're so right. It's funny. We've got a couple of texts here. They're pretty cute. People are weighing in on the conservation issue, and one person mixing it with politics said it's interesting. They can pass a bill about Bradford pears and prohibiting them, but they can't fix the constitutional process for changing everything in a wink of a Drosophila.
Listen, priorities, folks. Priorities. And no, there's a conservation agent who is a member of the Wake Up family who is walking into the Capitol as we speak to go testify in this hearing for the Senate bill to ban Bradford pear trees, as I understand. And he's going to be joining us at 7:35 tomorrow morning.
That'll be fun.
There you go.
It'll be fun. I didn't know it. One of our listeners texted and said that Bradford pears will grow thorns if they're allowed to grow big enough. Or I've never seen it.
That doesn't surprise me. I don't know. They're terrible trees, so I'm not surprised.
Well, why did landscapers start using them all decades ago? Why
because they're cheap and they grow fast.
Yeah, they grow fast. That's it.
It's the American way, right? Instant gratification, right? We don't need to wait for anything. Instant gratification. I've got a couple of things. I wanted to have some fun with our lovable producer, Hannah. But we don't have time now. I think we'll probably, maybe after we talk with Brad Jones at 8:10 and we do the morning bell. Stephanie had to leave early this morning, so I'll be covering that. But there's some stories coming out about TikTok that have me worried for you, Hannah.
Hey, go follow me on TikTok, producer_Hannah.
They have me worried. Please let Randy and listeners know that after cutting down a Bradford pear tree, a traditional fruiting pear tree can be grafted to the remaining trunk, therefore giving you a head start with, look at this. Now, wait a minute. How do you graft? And that's a new skill I've never learned. That's something that maybe the listener would have to tell us how to do. How would you graft a fruiting pear? But
Super glue usually
But isn't there
works.
something about female and male pear trees or some plants, a peach tree, you need to have a male and a female. into the markets. Monday, we had some mixed results. So sort of some, not much movement in your portfolio. The Dow was up just a hair.
Wait, Stephanie, you sound different today.
I'm identifying as Stephanie today.
I bet she loves that.
Yeah, I think she took a shot of testosterone today. S&P was down by about the same percentage. NASDAQ down a little bit more yesterday. Today, though, it looks like you may be in the money. At least the futures are suggesting that just by a little bit. Oil continues to drift down a little bit. I hope that translates to the pump. I'm getting tired of paying those inordinately high prices. How about you?
For a diesel truck.
Oh, my big A diesel, man. And you know what? I'm doing the last bit of getting stuff out of our house up north that we hope to sell very soon. Finally. And every time I drive up there, a couple-hour drive and back, I'm having to fill up on wherever I'm. That's crazy when you're scanning all the stations' prices from Columbia to Moberly to Macon to Kirksville and I'm like, okay, trying to plan it out so I can save a couple bucks, and maybe get a slice of pizza when my wife allows me to.
Or what is it you call it, a gas station roller dog?
Oh, I love those roller grills. Those are great. You know what I'm talking about, John, the roller grill. They got the little roller thing going. You can get a cheddar bratwurst. You can get a Polish sausage.
Oftentimes they've got the original hot dog on the roller grill that they had when they opened the business.
There you go. Everyone out there.
They always look mummified.
Yeah, all the guys out there know about the roll. And then you get the bun that's underneath the little thing, and you put the bun in there. You can put some relish on there. It's a delectable treat that I'm once in a while allowed to do. Energy and materials sectors led the gainers with industrials, consumer discretionary, and real estate. The biggest losers. Listen to that. Consumer discretionary, the biggest losers. So be careful about that. If you think that there's not a recession coming, I don't know. We may have to think again. So the futures look up, though, a little bit. Hey, there's a story out there about buy now and pay later. I know that, Hannah, you've talked about that before. That's gone from being sort of a niche to normal. Young people using it for daily essentials.
Yeah, it's kind of the idea of a credit card, but in most cases, it's very low interest or even interest-free. When you go to purchase, I actually just used it the other day. When you go to make a purchase, when you go to select your payment on the website, sometimes it'll say Afterpay or Affirm, these different companies that do it, and it splits your payment into 4 payments. You only owe 25% at the time of purchase, and every 2 weeks you make a payment. But they still ship you your item after just that first payment.
Wow.
It's pretty nifty.
Man, they're taking some risk on that with low rates, aren't they?
And they claim it doesn't affect your credit. I mean, they don't have my social security number or anything like that.
So they're not running a check on you.
Yeah, so I don't really know how it works, but...
Sort of like the
that I found in the Wall Street Journal. Many 20-somethings are now trying to break the all-consuming TikTok habit they started during the pandemic. So, dear Hannah, TikTok mistress, whatever, of the show, when did you really fall into line with TikTok? When did you get addicted to? I mean, when did you start enjoying TikTok?
I was late to the party. I held out on downloading it for quite some time.
Was it a pandemic thing?
Probably, if I had to guess.
So Julie Jargon says that the young adults she spoke to have been on social media for a decade or more, didn't question the impact it was having on them until recently. They noticed that TikTok in particular got in the way of sleep, work, household chores, and relationships. Some say it even kept them from chasing their own creative dreams. Hannah, how do you respond to what some of your peers in your generation, the TikTok generation, how do you respond to some of their evolving problems with it?
I mean, yeah, it's a time suck. I'm trying to look up my screen time report here from last week to see how much time. Oh gosh, last week I spent a combined 6 hours and 44 minutes on TikTok.
That's almost a work day.
My daily average was 2 hours. And
so, John,
14
dare
minutes.
I say that maybe subliminally and not consciously, the generation that wants 4-day work week wants to free up a day for social media. What do you think?
Fair. Yeah. Fair's fair, I guess.
You know, I do have to push back on the stat that you were reading there about TikTok hurting relationships.
Yeah.
My husband and I, we send each other TikToks like through the app. And then we get to laugh about them together. It's a bonding experience.
Oh.
Yeah.
The 20-somethings that she interviewed aren't outliers. Many of their friends have deleted the app or scaled back their use. TikTok's U.S. average monthly users between the age of 18 and 24 declined by nearly 9% from 22 to 23, according to mobile analytics firm Data.ai.
I will say, not that this means a whole lot because I don't get out a whole lot, I don't know anyone my age that's saying these things. Not saying that makes yours untrue, but my personal experience.
I'm just reporting what the Wall Street Journal says. Bruce, this one woman says she neglected her laundry and dishes because TikTok was so engaging. A few times at dinner with a friend, she would talk about a funny TikTok she had seen, then spend several minutes searching for it on her phone while her friend. That never happens to us, does it, guys?
Hey,
never happens to us.
Is it wrong of me to do a not-so-shameless plug to follow me on TikTok? Producer_Hannah. I have 299 followers. So who wants to be my 300th follower?
Probably not Josh Hawley.
Listen, Josh Hawley, which we finally had a Josh Hawley sighting in Missouri over the weekend.
Yeah, we did. On the picket line, no less, right? With the
Teamsters. With the Teamsters. And he's been on the picket line before with the auto workers.
He's going full populist, isn't he?
But he's been running that way. The people are acting surprised. He's had a streak of populism. I mean, he and Bernie Sanders have said, and this has nothing to do with politics.
I got it.
It has to do with the diabetes medication, how expensive it is, and they have raised that as an issue. So I'm not totally surprised that he was out on the picket line.
Thanks, Caleb. I now have 300
good.
followers.
There you go.
So going back to TikTok, one student, a film student, said that texting and calling relatives got in the way of his grades, and since he's abandoned TikTok, grades have gone up. Samantha Rodriguez found that her eagerness for TikTok put her in danger. I would scroll TikTok while taking my dogs on a walk, and I once walked into a mailbox. Another time, a tree.
Well, I don't have any dogs or a mailbox, so I'm good.
In defense of that, you could be distracted by about anything on social media or on your device and still walk into a tree.
Yeah. I just think it's it. Now, of course, on the other hand, I prefer that method of self-regulation when it comes to distractions in life and decreasing your productivity or whatever it is that gets in the way of achieving the very best you, which I think can happen with this social media. Is there any debate about that? But what do you think about the government, saying TikTok must be divested from any connection with China.
Well, this Travis Fitzwater has a bill in Jefferson City to essentially do just that. It would not ban TikTok per se, but it would certainly. They don't want it to. I mean, are we paying state workers to do their jobs, and they're playing on this, whatever this thing is you're talking about, this TikTok, I mean, or looking at videos? I mean, is that what we're paying people to do? I mean, that's the question.
Now, I will say, I mean, I understand TikTok not being installed on like state-owned devices, you know, maybe blocking it on state Wi-Fi connections, whatever. I get that. But for my personal use,
well, but here's the thing.
What's the harm?
How personal is it? And is your personal use, and however tens of millions of personal users, at what point, according to some Congress people, that becomes a national security issue?
Well, and I'm willing to admit I might be too naive on this, because growing up with technology, it's like, oh yeah, you know, other people are always harvesting your data, right?
Yeah.
But
you are the product. You're right. Yeah.
I don't understand what data can be used against the United States from TikTok. You know what I mean?
It's not, well, and again, it's a little complex. I don't know. And I don't know exactly, but Senator Hawley, it's not just Senator Hawley. There are Democrats as well on Capitol Hill who have definitely expressed concern specifically with TikTok because of the Chinese connection. And Hannah's right. There are some that actually want it banned altogether. But to be clear, Senator Fitzwater, the Jefferson City bill, the Mid-Missouri bill, would simply ban it on these state
Makes
consumers.
sense.
Right.
It's you know, and I don't expect a lot of opposition to that. But again, the clock is going to be the biggest thing with him. He'll probably have to attach that to another bill.
Well, the federal bill, you know, that Hawley's been behind since last fall. His big contention was that there is a lot of misleading content on there on the political side, especially. I know he pointed to a whole lot of support for the Hamas attack on the Israelis was showing up on TikTok.
Yeah,
yes, he said that.
That was a big part of his complaint about it.
Well, and I get frustrated when, you know, officials, lawmakers, you know, whoever you want to, you know, cite here, talk about how those things are happening on TikTok. Those things are happening on other social media platforms. So I don't understand why.
But they're not owned by the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah.
This is used for espionage. It's espionage. That's the point. Now, my question, and I think it's a good one that we need to answer, we should probably look into this further and talk to an office of Mike Gallagher or someone. He's the one that's sponsoring this HR 7521, Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. Specifically, why does China's knowledge of what's going on in producer Hannah's life, why does that threaten national security? I mean, I don't understand that. I need to understand how that happens. But they're saying, here's the thing. And I guess the story says TikTok investors, like one named Jeffrey Yass, who's reportedly a $33 billion stake in the Chinese company, are urging TikTok defenders to get on it. Here it is. It's clear that TikTok's overlords are feeling the heat, unleashing an army of users on members of Congress. There were numerous reports of TikTok defenders making death threats and callers suggesting they would kill themselves if the app goes away. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem.
Yeah, that's really...
In many ways, these uninformed users proved that the app is essentially a propaganda arm of the Chinese Communist Party.
And those could be bots. You know, when you talk about death threats on either member of Congress, and probably I'm going to assume some of that's probably bipartisan because there have been calls from both. But the reality is that automatically becomes the jurisdiction of the U.S. Capitol Police and the FBI. That cannot be tolerated.
But that tells you how what addicts will go to, what lengths they'll go to. So if the Communist Chinese Party has the ability to invoke this kind of vitriol against Congress members who want to limit its impact, what else are they doing through that app, right?
That's a very interesting
They'll stop at
thing.
nothing.
Yeah, it is very interesting. In earlier you had read, you quoted somebody said that they would, you know, they were eating dinner with someone, I'm paraphrasing here, but then they'd lose track and they'd have to go find a video and stuff. I was in a restaurant the other day and I looked around and I was shocked. A restaurant's a chance for you to really just relax and get your mind off stuff. And people are at tables with I assume their family members, all glued to their phones. And I thought to that would have never happened in 1977.
And you're right. And
it would never have happened.
The technology wasn't even there.
I've had the same feeling.
Technology wasn't, but it was just a different. It was more. It's also they're lost. They're like zombies looking at their phones.
But here's the deal. I mean, this is sort of becomes a baby in bathwater question. I found myself feeling guilty the last time we were at a fine dining establishment, and the wine list. I faced a wine list that I didn't recognize anything on there, and so I went to my wine app to find what other, people. Now that
you
was.
have a wine app?
I have a wine app, yes.
Oh, okay.
Because it gives me some ideas. I navigate to generally a very modestly priced wine. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to have dinner with my wife and I want to have a nice wine, okay, I start looking. Is it French? Is it Spanish? Is it Italian? Whatever. Okay, but I don't recognize. So then I can go in. Now, that's a legitimate use, right?
Sure.
That's but for me to sit there and then start texting my kids or talking to my mom or whatever, that's illegitimate. So you have to control it, right? It can be used for proper things. I prefer the best thing to do is if you're going to do that, go into the John. Do your social
it outside,
texting.
But
Yeah.
it's especially when they're trying to take your order.
Oh, that's terrible.
That's really, and they're making the waiter wait like that. But of course, I guess they'd argue they have the right to do it. But regardless, I think that's notwithstanding. I think that there is, in general, this is just my observation. In general, there has been a huge decline in manners in this country.
You think?
What happened to yes sir, no sir? What happened to thanks? What happened to please? Mm-hmm. To the listeners out there, am I wrong?
No, you're
not. And if I'm
right.
wrong, listeners, why am I wrong?
Well, Brian, excuse me, but I have a question.
I just don't understand it, John. I just don't. I have
a question for Hannah. I know Holly's big contention with TikTok was that a lot of younger folks your age, it's their primary source for news nationally and internationally. Is that the case with you?
I wouldn't say my primary news source, but I do follow, news outlets that I trust. Like with, again, any other social media platform, there are folks on there talking out of their rear end, and you have to fact check everything you consume online. Like, that's just being a good consumer of the internet.
It happened this morning, and it wasn't on TikTok. It was on Twitter, now X. We were talking about the Robert Hur story, the special counsel who's testifying in Congress today about the whys and the wherefores of his description of Joe Biden's failing memory and why he didn't prosecute him. That's the main focus. Okay, so I'm scrolling through on X, and I see bombshell news. He just resigned before testifying. We couldn't confirm it. He didn't, as far as we know, he didn't resign.
Still there.
Yeah, that's just...
Well, New Year's... right after New Year's Eve, I got duped. Remember, I thought that the ball that they drop in Times Square had exploded, and turns out it was fake. And the creator of the video actually came out a couple weeks later and was like, "Yeah, I got you guys."
I remember I felt so bad when I came out with the Boone County Republicans, and I saw something posted that the Boone County Republicans had asked for the resignation of Cindy O'Loughlin and Caleb Rowden, and my good friend Tony Lupo said, "No, that's." And I should have gone to the trouble of calling Tony. I didn't do it. My bad.
There was somebody that put that out. Somebody
it was
should
a
not
draft
have put
or
that
some
out.
proposed. Yeah.
But we should point out too that there are positive things that happen with the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John,
The TikTok.
John, you
There
know,
you go.
John, did you know how hurt I was on Saturday at the Como Man show that I didn't get? I
You
didn't
mean when I ate your Just Jeff's
No,
burger?
I bought that for you and for Andy and for Brian Hansen, the star of the Gary Nolan show.
And we appreciated it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Great. Well, my wife reminds me that because that was going to be a free day for Randy where I could have a roller grill in Casey. There's a Casey's I stop at and get gas up in Macon because it's cheaper when I'm having to go up north. And she gives me permission once in a while. So when she did, I posted that. And Hannah helped me with the post, but I didn't get the affirmation that I needed as I'm trying to become more savvy with the social media. You saw me, John. I was doing my best. I was trying.
You were working at it for sure.
And you know what I really appreciate about the photo?
What?
My Stanley Cup made it into the picture.
Yeah, well, did I tell you the story about the Stanley Cup? The gal that her life was saved. She took a bullet in the Stanley Cup. She must have had it,
What?
Yeah, I saw it in the New York Post.
Did you fact check this?
I didn't need to. It's a good enough story. We can just believe it.
It's New York Post, it has to be true.
Yeah.
What's on your leftover plate, dear John?
How about the one from yesterday we didn't do a lot with? The drunk driver ran a semi off the road in Montgomery County. He was the guy left I-70 covered with several tons of French fries. Happened early Saturday near Jonesburg when a 21-year-old Wright City man was weaving in and out of traffic. Ran the truck off the interstate, overturned near the outer road. Nobody was hurt, but he was busted for DWI, and no word on what they did with 47,000 pounds of French fries.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, they went and found some ketchup.
They did.
Well, there's a couple stories that I didn't get to, but we will get to them tomorrow. There's a Boeing whistleblower who was about to testify, and guess what? He didn't quite make it to the testimony.
Uh-oh.
Did he have dirt on the Clintons? Jeez.
I didn't go for it today because I just wasn't sure, but appears to be.
He was flying United. Right?
appears to be a legit story, that and some other things. So we'll get back to